A teenage girl, a deadly disease, and a revenge so calculated it left an entire town in shock. What if I told you that Emma Danny, a quiet, bullied girl, didn't contract an incurable STD through sex, but through a cruel, heartless prank? And when she found out, she made a choice, not to accept her fate, not to seek justice, but to use it as a weapon. Every year, over 3.2 million students endure relentless bullying. Most suffer in silence, some break under the weight. But Emma, she decided to take control in a way no one saw coming. 7 boys, 7 lives, all connected by one terrifying secret. She left behind a chilling confession, a town that would never recover, and a story that raises one unsettling question. Was she a victim or a monster? Stay with me as we uncover the shocking truth behind Emma Danny's revenge. Because the most horrifying part of this story, it was all part of her plan. Emma Danny never stood a chance, not in this town. She was the kind of girl most people overlooked, the kind of girl who sat at the back of the classroom, staring out the window, lost in thought. The kind of girl whose name no one remembered, unless they were calling it to mock her. She had no entourage, no close friends, no protective older brother, just her father, a man who loved her but was too broken by life to protect her from what was coming. Emma had been alone for as long as she could remember, her mother gone before she even knew what it meant to lose someone. A tragic accident, they said. A drunk driver on a highway late at night. One mistake, one moment, and everything changed. That left Robert Danny, a man who worked with his hands, who smelled like motor oil and cigarettes, who came home late and left early. A man who did his best, but his best was never enough. The bills piled up, the town whispered, and Emma, she was left to figure things out on her own. She was quiet, artistic, the kind of girl who poured herself into her sketchbook because it was the only place she could exist without being judged. A girl who saw the world in color, even when all it ever gave her was gray. But in high school, being different isn't just lonely, it's dangerous. The torment started small, a joke at her expense, a rumor that spread in whispers, then through texts, then across the entire school like wildfire. A shove in the hallway, a cruel note left in her locker, a group of girls laughing as they pointed at her clothes, her shoes, the way she held herself. But then came the boys, and the boys were worse. They didn't just laugh at her, they didn't just ignore her. They made her feel like she was nothing. Every day she was a target, a game, a joke they never got tired of telling. And at the center of it all, Derek Lawson. Derek was everything Emma wasn't. He was wealthy, powerful, and untouchable. His father, Charles Lawson, owned half the town. And his money didn't just buy luxury cars and designer clothes. It bought silence. It bought protection. It bought control. Derek didn't just get away with things. He never faced consequences at all. Not for the fights he started, not for the teachers he humiliated, not for the girls who left school in tears because of what he said to them. His name meant something here. His family meant something here. And that meant he could do whatever he wanted. And what he wanted was to make Emma Danny's life a living hell. It started with words, insults disguised as jokes, comments that lingered long after the laughter stopped. Then came the pranks, gum in her hair, her locker vandalized, her backpack emptied and dumped in the cafeteria while the entire school watched. And then it escalated. Derek and his 6 friends had a tradition, a game they played every year, a new target, a new way to break them down. And in her final year of high school, Emma Danny became that target. What happened next wasn't a joke. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't something they would look back on and laugh about at their 5-year reunion. It was something else entirely, and it would change everything. By the time it was over, 7 lives would be ruined, and Emma Danny would be the name they would never forget. Derek Lawson wasn't just any bully. He was the king of the school, the one name everyone knew, the one face no one dared to cross. When he walked into a room, heads turned, not out of respect, not out of admiration, but out of fear. He had everything, a name that meant something, a father who could make problems disappear, and the kind of confidence that came from knowing the rules didn't apply to him, not in this town. And because Derek was untouchable, the boys who followed him, the ones who laughed when he laughed, who attacked when he attacked, were untouchable too. Jake, Tyler, Ryan, Cody, Adam, Blake. Together, they were unstoppable. Together, they were dangerous. And Emma Danny? She never stood a chance. For years, they tormented her, in the hallways, in the classrooms, online. At first, it was subtle, a whisper as she walked by, a note passed across the room, a joke made just loud enough for her to hear. Then, it became something else. Emma wasn't just the girl they ignored. She was the girl they tested. How much could she take? How long before she broke? She would open her locker to find her notebook soaked in water, her artwork torn to pieces, her gym clothes stolen. She would hear them behind her in the cafeteria, mimicking the way she walked, the way she spoke, loud enough for everyone to notice, loud enough for no one to step in. Her phone would light up at night with messages she never asked for, anonymous numbers, threats disguised as jokes, pictures of her from angles she didn't recognize, someone watching, someone always watching. And the worst part, no one did anything. Teachers turned away, parents dismissed it as kids being kids. The principal called her father once, suggested she should try blending in more, maybe find a new group of friends, as if that would fix anything, as if this wasn't exactly what Derek wanted. Derek didn't just enjoy breaking people, he needed to. It wasn't about Emma, not really. It was about control, about power, about proving again and again that nothing could touch him. And then, the prank. The one thing that would take everything he thought he knew and twist it into something he couldn't control. The thing that would change his life forever. The classroom smelled of acrylics and turpentine, the familiar scent of creativity, of escape. For Emma Danny, art was the only place where no one could reach her, where she could exist without judgment, without whispers, where, for a brief moment, she wasn't a target. But that day, she was. Derek and his friends had been planning it for weeks, not a harmless prank, not something they could pass off as a joke. This was something else, something designed to leave a mark. They had heard the rumors, a part of town no one talked about, a place only certain people knew how to find, a squat house littered with used syringes, discarded needles left behind by people long past caring. They didn't go inside. They didn't have to. The ground outside was littered with what they needed. Used, contaminated, forgotten. They stuffed them into a plastic bag and carried them back to school like trophies. No fear, no hesitation, no thought about what could happen next. Emma didn't see them do it. She was too focused, too caught up in her work, a portrait, unfinished. She always left faces for last, as if she wasn't sure who they would become until the final moment. She didn't see Derek reach into her supplies, didn't see his hand close around her brushes, his fingers moving quickly and practiced. Didn't see the way Jake smirked as he glanced over his shoulder, the way Ryan nudged Tyler, stifling laughter. They mixed them in with her things, nestled between tubes of paint, the wooden handles blending in perfectly. When the bell rang, Emma reached for her brush, dipped it into the paint, ran it across the canvas in smooth, deliberate strokes. She didn't feel it at first, just a small sting, a quick, sharp prick, like a paper cut, easily ignored. She glanced down at her finger, a bead of red forming at the tip. She wiped it away and kept painting. Behind her, Derek watched and smiled. Emma had no idea what had just happened, no reason to think twice about a minor cut, no reason to suspect that something had just entered her bloodstream, something that would change everything. Days passed, then weeks. The cut healed. The memory of that day faded until the sickness began. It started like the flu, fatigue, aches, the kind of exhaustion that lingers in the bones. She thought she had been pushing herself too hard, spending too many late nights sketching under the dim glow of her bedroom lamp. Then came the fevers, the chills, the weight loss, the sudden, inexplicable bruises forming beneath her skin. Her father noticed, took her to the clinic, a simple checkup, nothing serious, they thought. Then the test came back. Emma sat in the cold, sterile room, the paper on the examination table crinkling beneath her fingers. The doctor's voice was calm, too calm, as he read from the chart. He spoke in careful, measured tones, as if each word had weight. A rare disease, incurable, one that had only one known method of transmission. Emma didn't understand at first. She shook her head, confused. The words didn't make sense. The doctor hesitated, studied her. And then the question that made her blood run cold. "Emma, have you been sexually active?" She blinked. The room felt too small. Her voice cracked when she answered. "Number." Silence. The doctor frowned, flipped through the chart again as if looking for another answer. But there wasn't one. Emma had contracted a deadly STD, and there was only one way she could have gotten it. Realization hit her like a slow-moving car crash. The paintbrush, the cut, the way Derek had watched her that day, the way his friends had whispered behind her back. They had done this to her, on purpose. Emma Danny was dying, and it wasn't an accident. The world tilted. The doctor was still talking, but she wasn't listening anymore. Words blurred together. Her father's voice, shocked, broken, muffled under the weight of what she now understood. She had spent years being their victim, years enduring their cruelty, their humiliation, their games. But this wasn't something she could brush off. This wasn't something she could walk away from. Emma Danny had nothing left to lose. And for the first time in her life, she had power. Emma Danny had spent years being their victim, years enduring their cruelty, their games, their laughter. But now they had done something that could never be undone. This wasn't humiliation. This wasn't a bruised ego. This was her life, and it was ending. For the first time, she saw them for what they were, not untouchable, not invincible, just boys, arrogant, careless, and completely unaware of what was coming. Emma had no future. They had taken that from her, but she could make sure they had no future either. And so, she made a choice. She would make them pay one by one. She started with Jake. Jake was the easiest, always looking for something on the side, something secret, a girl he could brag about, a name he could add to his list. Emma let him think it was his idea, a chance encounter after school, a conversation that felt harmless. The way she lingered when she spoke, the way she bit her lip, just enough to make him think he was in control. He wasn't. That night, they met in the back of his car. He laughed when she told him to keep it quiet, mistaking her silence for submission. She walked away knowing he had no idea what she had just given him. Then there was Tyler, then Ryan, then Cody, then Adam. One by one, they fell into her trap, each believing they had won, each mistaking her invitation for weakness. But it was never about desire, never about attraction. It was about making sure they carried what she carried, that they felt the weight of what she felt, that they understood in the end what it meant to be powerless. By the time she got to Derek, she didn't need to seek him out. He came to her. Derek had noticed the way she moved differently, the way she no longer looked at the ground when she passed them in the halls, the way the rumors had shifted, how the boys had started to talk about her, whispering her name in ways that made no sense to him. So he had to see for himself, had to know why his favorite target had stopped acting like one. Emma let him believe he was in control. She let him believe he was the one taking something from her. But Derek Lawson never took anything from Emma Danny again. It started slowly, a feeling of exhaustion, the kind of tired that never goes away. Then the fevers, the headaches, the weight loss. Jake was the first to go to the doctor, then Tyler, then Ryan, the same symptoms, the same tests, the same results. The truth spread like wildfire, and then the letters arrived. Now you know how it feels to be powerless. There was no signature, no need for one. They all knew who had sent them. Emma had given them a gift, one they could never return. Derek refused to believe it. He tried to tell them it wasn't real, that she was lying, that she was trying to scare them. Then one of them collapsed in the locker room, and suddenly no one was laughing anymore. Emma had done what no one else ever could. She had taken away their power. And soon, the whole town would know. The town had always been quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where the biggest scandal was a teacher caught drinking on the job, where crime was something that happened elsewhere, far beyond its borders. Then, one by one, the boys got sick, and suddenly, the town wasn't so quiet anymore. Parents were furious. The school was under investigation, the hospital overwhelmed. Doctors whispered behind closed doors, trying to understand how 7 teenage boys, healthy, privileged, untouchable, had all come down with the same rare, incurable disease. And when they finally pieced it together, the answer sent a ripple through the town. A single name, whispered in hushed voices, written in medical files, spoken behind closed doors. Emma Danny. The Lawson family moved quickly. They had resources, connections. They had spent years making sure Derek could do whatever he wanted without consequence. And they weren't about to stop now. The narrative was simple. Emma was lying. The boys had gotten sick from something else. Something genetic, something unrelated. Lawyers were hired. The school was threatened. The police told to look the other way. But then, the first death happened. Tyler had always been the quiet one. He followed Derek, laughed when he was supposed to, did what he was told. But guilt has a way of breaking people. He stopped going to school, stopped answering calls. His parents found him one morning, his room too quiet, the note folded neatly on his nightstand. It wasn't long, just a few sentences, an apology, a name. Emma Danny. Ryan disappeared next. No note, no warning, just gone. His parents filed a missing person report, but the truth was clear, he wasn't coming back. Then came Cody, but he wasn't running, he wasn't hiding. He was angry. The night before Emma Danny died, she made a choice. One final act, one last message. She set up the camera, adjusted the angle, looked into the lens, and then she smiled. Her voice was calm, unshaken, no tears, no apologies. "I was never supposed to win," she said. "I was never supposed to matter, but now I do." She leaned forward, tilted her head slightly. Her fingers tapped against the desk, slow, rhythmic. "Now we're even." Hours later, Derek Lawson walked into her home. The front door was unlocked. The house was quiet. Her father was working late, just like always. No one knows what was said. No one knows who raised their voice first, who took the first step forward. What they do know is that a gunshot rang out. The neighbors called the police. The officers arrived in minutes, but by then, it was already over. 2 bodies, 1 gun, 1 survivor. Emma Danny was gone. Derek Lawson was alive. And the town would never be the same again. Emma Danny gone, Derek Lawson is alive, and the town will never forget what happened. There are those who say she was a monster, that what she did was unforgivable, that she went too far. Then there are those who see her as a victim, a girl who was tormented, broken, and pushed past the edge, a girl who was given no justice, no second chance. But the truth is never simple. Revenge has a way of changing people. It makes them feel powerful, invincible. But it always comes with a price. And when it was over, when the last breath was drawn, the last shot fired, the last name spoken, all that remained was silence. Emma Danny got the justice she wanted, but was it worth it? Now, I want to hear from you. Was Emma Danny monster, or was she justified? Comment guilty if you think she went too far, or justified if you believe she had every right. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more true crime stories like this.